told and your voices be heard. May you shine like the moon, fly like a bird on wings of liberation. We will rise when we listen to the heart and the ways of the wise. Ways of the wise, ways of the wise. On the flames of transformation, we will rise from out of the shadows and into the light. Into the light, into the light.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Unify Women Rising. I am Debbie G. We're missing a couple of our ladies, and they're going to be joining us shortly. Before they do, I want to introduce a very special guest, and I want to tell you that today's show is about healing. Healing is a love story, and I'm going to promise you this is going to be the most incredible show that we've had. And the young lady that is joining us today, her name, let me just, before I even tell you that, let me tell you about Gina Tabrizy. Gina Tabrizy, I was blessed to meet years ago at an event. I heard her on stage and my heart was just exploding. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She was just so dynamic. Recently, I was lucky enough to be at one of her book signings. That's where I picked this up. And again, watching her on stage, I was touched at the way healing is a love story and the way that she shares her heart with vulnerability. And it's absolutely fascinating. Gina Tabrizy is a marriage, family, and therapist with over 35 years of experience and expertise in the areas of addiction, trauma, codependency. She's an inspirational public speaker, educator, author, radio host, and social media moderator. She is known for being a direct, passionate, humorous, and loving while maintaining a reputation for providing excellent clinical care. So without further ado, Gina Tabrizy. Gina, welcome to Unify and Unify Women Rising. Our ladies are just a little bit, but they're just having a little bit of issue. They are all in different locations around the world.
That's amazing, actually. That's wonderful. I appreciate it so much.
I want to read everybody while you're joining us and getting comfortable. I want you to listen to this. See through the eyes of imagination, where all remains plausible and nothing is outside your reach. So where the clouded edges of doubt are peeled back to reveal the heavenly realm of your destiny, see with the eyes of your soul and rejoice, for you are the moment of the divine. And I have more, but there's poems laced through here from your beautiful soul that are just remarkable to me. And I am so grateful for this book. I have one more, and then I'm going to let you start. I'm just going to let you take it away.
I'm just taking it in right now. I'm just in awe of everything you're saying. I'm like a little kid going, oh my God.
I love that. All right. So this is awesome. In humans, the body's immediate reaction to the threat of injury or death normally triggers a perfectly natural flight or fight response. With trauma, we get stuck in that moment, frozen, along with the intensity of the original experience, and that's okay. Honestly, however responding these situations is okay. It has to be. It has to be okay. The challenge lies in seeing trauma. This is it right here. Okay. This is it. I love this. The challenge lies in seeing trauma on a spiritual level, in recognizing it is our spirit. You ready, everybody? Calling us to become better versions of ourselves. Ugh. I chill bumps on that. And I'm going to, it's glorious. And I want to bring up Miss Amber Hartnell, all the way from Puerto Rico. Puerto Vallarta.
You know, Amber, we're still in the Latin zone, and I'm Latina, so bienvenido, mi amor.
Pleasure to be joining you today, and I apologize for the tardiness. It was all kinds of interesting, unknown technical variables to have to jump over to get here. So glad it worked out.
Awesome.
So happy that you are here. So Amber, this is Gina Tabrizy, and we're going to be talking today about her book, Healing is a Love Story. And I have been,
title.
Right?
And
That's it.
Yes.
look at this
You don't
cover.
have to read, if you don't want, just read the title.
It's so true. That's what it is.
It's really, it's absolutely precious. And Gina, take it away. Let's talk about how you got, let's talk a little bit about the beginning of the book and your journey, being young and being like Lucy from Charlie Brown.
Yes. Well, you're so sweet. You were like, she's this young woman. I don't know where you pulled that from, but I really appreciate it in my late midlife already. But I was a very, very curious child. And because I was so curious, my family had difficulty managing that.
Mm-hmm.
They saw my curiosity as trying to be rebellious or being out of line or not wanting to conform. And they had a really strong desire to keep me in line. And I wasn't a kid that acted out. I wasn't necessarily hyperactive. I just could not stop asking questions. And so it is so befitting that at this stage of my life, when I finally go on social media, I title my page Ask Gina, because I love people asking questions. It's a curious mind is a healthy mind. It's an active mind. And it means I'm in search of myself. I'm in search of knowing. I'm in search of understanding. And so as I'm a little girl and I'm watching, I'm trying to find characters, on TV, because that's all we had back then, or in print in the newspaper that I could relate to, I find the Charlie Brown characters. And when I find Lucy, I'm like, Lucy's the shit, because Lucy would speak her mind and get away with it. And I thought, nobody is censoring Lucy. And she set up shop as a psychiatrist and she charged 5 cents. And people would come up to her and go, oh my God, I have this problem. And my little heart, she'd go, shut up, snap out of it. And I thought, I love her. She's brilliant. And trust me, I don't say that to my patients. I say it inside. But the effect is I don't bullshit. I just came straight out. Look, we don't have time. We don't have time to always get into the niceties of things and make it very appropriate so that people can manage it and digest it in a way that works for them. And that's the script that therapists are taught. We have to take all this time to build rapport and make sure everybody's safe and all this stuff. And I'm like, they're never safe. If you had trauma and experienced severe trauma in any aspect throughout the stages of your life, you don't ever feel safe. So how am I going to, taking my time, being kind and being gentle, you going to feel any safer? You're not. So one of the things I do is just speak, as my mentor used to say to me, you would talk about what you don't want to talk about. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the backstory comes from that, starting with seeing Lucy doing it, seeing how effective it was, and then me wanting to do that and me asking all the same questions of myself that I would ask others. That's kind of how it started.
I love that. Well, what's great is how that you go into in more depth in this with a lot of vulnerability. And I actually want to talk about the vulnerability and releasing trauma and how that works.
Well, I think for me, there were different levels of trauma that I experienced. And what I understood as a therapist was trauma is a catastrophic event that you've either experienced or witnessed. It had to be something on the magnitude of a natural disaster or being molested or raped or beaten or alcoholic home, abandoning home, et cetera, et cetera. And every time I go into the room with trauma survivors who had sexual abuse or some kind of abuse, I really identified with them. And I thought, I've never been hit. I wasn't molested. I wasn't all the things, the big T's. But I feel exactly the way you do. And then I came upon a training with Pia Melody, who's very well known in the industry and has written all the books on facing love addiction and codependency and all that stuff. And she said, trauma is anything less than nurturing. And from that point on, I felt very free. I said, wow. I had a whole lot of less than nurturing. But then I took it, I expand on that because I said I want people to understand what that means, and not everybody still gets that, because it's why do I have to identify it as a trauma? It was just, my mom just didn't pay that much attention to me, or my mom was very busy. They don't want to name it. So then I said, anytime your emotional needs go unmet, you have experienced a trauma. It does not mean it was intended to be inflicted upon you as a trauma, but you, in your natural desire to heal and to grow as a human, interpreted it in that way. And that changed the fabric of how you relate to other people, how you see yourself in the world, how you identify your own personality structure is all around, what did I interpret when my mom was so busy and she didn't have time for me? Oh, I'm not worth it. It wasn't mom's busy, it's I'm not worth it. I don't matter. I'm not good enough. And so I started to discover that I had a whole bunch of that, a whole bunch of those messages growing up that lead me into tragic relationships where I allow myself to be abused in ways that I had never even experienced, until I did. And then after that, one of the most beautiful traumas I ever experienced was my cancer, hands down. And so this book, yes, you're going to hear about my story as a kid growing up and different things and how I identify as a therapist. But at the end of the day, this got born because I got cancer. I mean, I have no other explanation. Is to say, when that came, I had to make a choice. I had to make a choice to live as a victim, to live scared in a mind of scarcity, or I had to decide that it was a challenge and it was an invitation. And so I decided, and it sounds, for some people it's like, woo, it's not so hokey and very yogi, Zen, Buddhist, which is great, but I don't have a choice in this. This is coming to me. I'm powerless. How is that not trauma? If I'm in a situation where someone, assaults me, I'm powerless over that, yet it's happening, yet I cannot stop it, yet I cannot change it. And so cancer did that to me. It became the perpetrator who came in the room and said, what you got? And so I started to talk to it as if it was a gift I was receiving. And that was the life-changing moment for me. I said, you're a guest in my home. You're here to visit me. And obviously there's some lessons I still haven't learned. So what are you here to teach me? It was here to teach me, you think that you've worked on yourself. You think that where is the ultimate is purely loving yourself unconditionally. I was still holding some boundaries around, Gina, you deserve love if you do this, and if you do that, and if you do this, then it's okay to receive love. And I didn't know I was still doing that at 52 years old back then. So I mean, I could keep talking, so I'm going to stop.
I could keep listening because I would love for Amber to pop in.
Well, I'm just appreciating everything that you're sharing, and it's so easy to undermine all of those micro traumas that we experience being on this planet with the conditions set up as they are, right? They're not necessarily set up to support our natural unfolding in the flourishing that I believe is our fundamental design. And when we brush them over, when we downplay them, they tend to just actually stack up in the system and then start creating other patterns of behavior that reinforce it, right? So cause us to keep feeling like we're not available to receive the love that we know that we fundamentally deserve, but somehow it's just an arm's length away, or it comes in some distorted form because it's resonating with those unresolved, unmetabolized aspects, right? So I love that you address that how important that is, not only addressing the big T traumas, but also the micro traumas that we all are subjected to.
Yeah.
And also I really love that you relate to it this way, that healing is a love story. It's the way that we can come into a deeper intimacy with ourselves and learn how to hold ourselves in the ways that we weren't held, that we needed, right? And so finding those gaps, learning how to fill them in. And I know I found in my own experience, once I really began to do that, to watch the feedback loop of reality respond in kind, right? So suddenly, oh, there's a person in my life that just gets me deeply, that I can relax so profoundly with and can allow for all of myself to be seen and held and loved. So I feel that love story, it's, as we do it here, it extends to all of our relationships.
Yeah. I mean, certainly it's the dialogue. So it's what I started to understand was the dialogue that I was having with myself. and we talk about therapists all the time. Therapists will teach and preach to clients, well, you need to turn that, negative into a positive. Like when you hear yourself saying this, I'm a piece of crap, then say to yourself, I'm a beautiful, wonderful being. Well, if I have all that trauma and all that emotional baggage that I'm carrying around that makes me feel that I'm less than, I can't just flip that. There's no magic pill for that. And when they do it, they don't feel authentic in it. Mm-hmm. So even when I started to write, as much as I've done that work, as much as I've purged the emotional trauma to allow it to grieve, I always get asked, why do I have to talk about this? Why do I have to do this? And I go, because it's sitting in the center of your soul and your spirit, and it's blocking you from everything that you are capable of. Everything that you believe in, everything that you want for your life is being interrupted by this negative belief system that the trauma is sticking you with, which is shame. It's a tremendous amount of shame that we carry around. And it's always an internal voice that keeps, every time you're doing just a little good, a little better, you hear that going, but you better not go too far out into the world, and you better not try too hard, and you better not let people see you too much. And as I started, I was telling Debbie, the way this book happened was I did not edit it. What I chose to do was sit in front of a camera and organically speak to a videographer and just let it come, so that I wouldn't script it, so that I wouldn't. And so when I go back and read it, there's a page in my book, page 33. I'm going to read it because my girlfriend, which I attribute her to, she highlighted this and she put it on Facebook, and I go, oh, I forgot that, because I forget what I said because I didn't go back and read it. While recording the video that serves as the basis for this book, I realized I was censoring myself, which is something that I do not do. I flow, right? Mm-hmm. But I told on myself, and I said my brain got in there and started filtering things based on all the future plans I had for my work. And in my experience, it is always my brain that wants to limit me by meddling with my emotions, censoring the full expression of what I really want to project. One way of not censoring yourself is to speak your truth. This is profoundly important because at the end of the day, the only person you have to live with, honor, nurture, and learn to love is yourself. Regardless of who comes in and out of your life, if you are unable to love the whole of you, your one body, your one mind, your one singular human experience, you will always have pain and you will always have trauma. That's the crux of healing as a love story, is I know at the foundation, if I don't heal the place where I'm able to love myself, I will carry it with me. It will continue to affect all of my relationships and the way that I interact with people. I had this beautiful gentleman in my office the other day, and I literally told him, just like every therapist does, that he had to practice every time he hears that negative self-talk. I said, I want you to repeat a positive affirmation to yourself. I don't care what it is. Yeah, I'm a good person, whatever you can muster, because he can't stand to say, I love myself. And you would have thought I told him to drink, a barrel of pickle juice. He was like, ugh, I have to do that, gross. And I go, wow. I said, I want you to consider why it's so offensive for you to be kind to yourself. Mm-hmm. And who taught you that?
I want to point that out to the audience, actually, and I want you to think about that. If anybody has that internal reaction that comes up when you're being encouraged to see yourself as the beauty that you are, ask yourself why. Why is that bothering you? I absolutely loved that. The other thing I was really appreciating was how that you talked about the gift of trauma. Mm-hmm. Because we get, I went through huge victimization attitude. I was victim-y with some rewards and stuff. I was great. I was an awesome victim, let me tell you. Mm-hmm. And the depth of appreciation for the experiences. And so this is where the shift happened. It was speaking the truth, though. It was being vulnerable enough to say the thing that I was too afraid to say before because someone might not like me. Right. Someone might, and now I'm like, well, yeah, it's okay. I'm awesome. So please, I don't know what to tell you.
Exactly. One time I sat in a room with my family members, and we had this really traumatic event. It was my father had passed. And cancer has so many layers for me that I will tell you that I have to write that book, that cancer, you know, the gift of cancer. Because when I got cancer the first time, my father was passing. It was within a week of me being diagnosed. I find out I'm going to lose my dad too. And he was my absolute person. Then the second time it comes back, my mother unexpectedly gets a diagnosis and I lose her within 2 weeks. As my mom was passing, I had said to her, and I said, I've got two parents. I got cancer twice. You need to take this with me. I'm not going to do round 3. But the reason it was the gift to me was in that moment, I had a choice and I did not want to die. And should I interpret, like anyone who interprets their trauma as the injury that it is, it's not to say like you got violated and I'm going, oh, that was a great gift. That was fabulous. Like that sounds sick and perverse. It's not that. It's that I am human. I will be traumatized. I will be hurt in some way. I don't get to choose what those traumas might be. I wish it wasn't this one. I fucking wish I didn't have cancer. Of all the ones that I was going to get, a life death sentence hanging over my head. I've gone through molestation and being touched and being belittled and being betrayed and I've gone through all the things, multiple car accidents, life-threatening events, but this one, really? And it was like, no, I'm better than this. And I was like, where's that thought coming from? I'm better than this moment that wants to define me as a thing that is going to die. I know that I'm not immortal. I know that I have a life expiration, but I know it's not this moment. And I feel in my core that you're here to tell me, what else do you got? I took it on as you're in the room and you're challenging me. You're not hurting me. You're not wounding me. You're not defining me, but you're challenging me. Are you going to stay here? Which means staying in the victim, staying stuck and staying caught. And then I would have gone further into the shell because the second time it comes during COVID. And I was like, oh, really? I'm isolated. I lost my job. Well, I didn't lose it, but I lost half of it. They reduced my hours to nothing. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, now I'm home. I'm stuck with myself. I'm stuck with cancer. What? And I start talking to it. Like I said to you, like I would a friend. You're a guest in my home. What are you here to teach me? What do you want? Oh my God. Every day I would wake up and I would have some new thought. Guess what? All those poems, Debbie, when do you think they came? That's when they came. That whole year, these spiritual poems would, and I go, oh, I'm going to write that. My father was a poet, and I would always write poems from the time I was a little girl. I've never shared them ever because, ooh, you can't see me because I'm not that good. I'm not that wonderful. It's all bullshit. I'm just faking it. And that's all bullshit. I've never been faking it. This is who I am. I'm never not being myself. And why am I the worst critic of all the critics I've ever had? So bullshit on that. So I start writing them. And as I'm writing them, I have a girlfriend in New York who starts writing her book. She's, 20 years younger than me. She's a freaking powerhouse of a woman. And she's going through, I went with her through her trauma story and healing her family and her molestation, all the stuff. And she starts writing this book and goes, I'm going to tell my life story. And I'm like, that's brilliant. So she starts writing it. She starts asking me to give words to the book. So there are several chapters where she's quoting me. It got to the point where she felt, Gina, who does this? The only purpose for my book, I believe, was to put you out there. And I went, what? So even that, I went, who would do that for another human? Who would be so sincere? Who would be so generous? But she spiritually was being driven to write it. And she believed it so strongly that after having it a year on her page, she took it down. She goes, I don't really care if anybody ever knows I wrote a book or did it. In her divine wisdom, she felt she was a muse for me. And guess what happened? On the last chapter of her book, which is called The Wait, I will put in a plug for Shada, Ishra, The Wait, like wait. She goes, I want you to wrap this up for me about what is trauma. And I guess what the last chapter of her book is? Healing is a love story. And as soon as I spoke the words and I go, oh my God, that's my book. All of this is because I'm in there dancing with cancer, saying, what else do you have for me? And what it had for me was don't be silent. Don't fear anything. You're an infinite being. You don't end here, even if you end here. And so taking fear from me, that's absolute freedom. And when fear is removed from you, there is nothing but love. And that is the point of the Healing is a Love Story, encapsulates loving yourself, but the universal divine love that is everything that we are, and the only reason we're supposed to be here. And I know people are going to go, ooh, but you know what? I have the therapy side, I have the science, and I can speak to all that. What transforms lives is this. What I'm saying to you right now, nobody gives a crap about cognitive behavioral, dialectical behavior, EMDR, all that stuff. It all works. But if you get at somebody's soul and you get on a spiritual level with someone, that's when you transform their life. And reimagining trauma for me was saying, we are stuck, and we've been stuck in viewing this from a human experience. We've got to look at it from a spiritual experience. And what I decided to say was, God thinks I'm a badass. And
yes.
Okay? So I want everybody sitting there with trauma going, oh my God, I can't, my uncle molested me. Lord knows how many times I've been touched and groped by people I can't even freaking remember. They no longer touch me. They didn't touch me. This body, so what? What did they get out of it? They didn't get shit out of it.
Yeah.
They have their own trauma. They have their own shame. They have their own guilt. I hope they're rotting and festering with all of that. And that transforms them. But the reality is they did not touch the soul that came onto this earth to only do one thing, which is to heal and to love, and nothing else. There's nothing else I need to do ever,
Yes. Oh, so much yes to everything that you were sharing. Thank you for your passion, for your spirit, for standing so fully in it and beaming it unabashedly. It's inspiring, and I really just want to honor you, Gina. And it's a voice that needs to be heard, especially in these times where more than ever we're collectively riddled with trauma beyond anything we've ever known, right? And that the fundamental orientation to choose to step outside of the identification of a victim, and no matter how many horrible things have happened to you in this body, to reconnect with the truth that we are an eternal soul beyond this body. We'll live far beyond this body. We always have. And to decide that we can use all of it as fuel for growth, right? Yeah. If we believe that life is for us, no matter what it shows up as, whether it's preferred or not, it's all for us. It's all here to support us to evolve and grow and to reveal the inherent gifts of our soul that are here to shine forth in this world.
And I want people to get that, when I say this, hear me that it's not cold and callous. As a clinician, 36 years, I sit in the room with people's trauma, and we grieve and we cry and we hit pillows and we do psychodrama. We act it out. We write about it. We burn letters. Trust that the work happens of grieving. This isn't I'm going to think what Gina's telling me, and then my trauma goes away. Grieve it, feel it, experience it, know it. Don't identify it as who you are. It is not who you are. It is an experience, and it is coming through you, and it is working through you. The more you tie yourself to the experience, the more you're giving power to your perpetrators.
Yes.
And I'm always saying, why are you letting your perpetrators stay in your bed? You want to kick them out of your bed? Get good, get better, get well, get healthy. That disintegrates the mind of and the essence of and the energy of the perpetrator is when you get better. So when you stay in it, in essence, you're staying tied to that because something in you is saying, I'm deserving of that. And there's no way in hell any of us are deserving of any of those traumatic experiences. They simply happened. They didn't choose you. You didn't choose them. I don't like that either. There's years and years where we run around saying you're drawing this to you. No, you're not. It's just part of your story. You got up, you went to the beach, you got in a car accident, part of your story. You didn't go out there going, please, no. And you don't have that all-knowing, all omnipotent God, whatever it is, something greater than you brings that into your awareness, brings that into your life. We don't have that yet. We can tap into that, certainly. We can bring that into our awareness. But I think it's pushing you. It's almost like rebirthing. So if you reimagine trauma as a rebirth, going through the birth canal, honey, is not pretty. It's not cute. It's not fun. Nobody wants to get stuck there either. It's a nightmare. It's dark, it's icky, it's loud, it's weird. Your head's getting smushed, and then all of a sudden you're out in these freaking fluorescent masks. Like all these hands are on you. How is that a loving, healing story? God bless all the doulas and all those women that go home and just squat into a beautiful bathtub and have this.
She did, actually.
Of course she did. I knew she did. That's
Amber did. She really did. She did not have that experience.
Yeah.
No, I had the one you had, Gina.
Well, you know.
And
like,
yeah.
Yeah, and I got cut open. I had 2 C-sections, and both my children were breached. Let's talk about making choices from the womb.
Mm-hmm.
I have 2 of the most stubborn children on the planet.
I'm going to do it differently.
And I went, and the first one, you could really tell his head was right here. And the doctor kept, oh, please don't get me started about trying to turn the baby and it would get stuck sideways and then pop up, pop up, pop. And the third time I grabbed her because she had long acrylic nails and was digging into my hard pregnant stomach. And I grabbed her and I said, don't touch me again. I'm going to kill you. And it was going, he doesn't want to turn. Do you not get it? Because I'm getting it. He's not going anywhere. Leave him there. He's cool. He's happy. We'll take him out some other way. So when my daughter comes, she does the same thing. And then my daughter was a little bit smaller, not much. And so my doctor kept saying, no, that's not her head, Gina, that's her butt. And I go, she got a bionic butt, because I'm telling you, that's her head. I can feel her head right there. And she goes, I don't think so. And sure enough, she's like, oh my God, right, it's her head. And I go, we're not touching her. Because he came in that way, she's coming in that way. This is how they want to come in. Nobody's hurting anybody. I'm going to have to go through another surgery, whatever God wanted me to do with that. They're coming the way they want to come. So you come into this world that I came in kicking, fighting with my foot twisted and umbilical cord for 23 hours. And my mother, and I was bungee cord, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. The last time they pushed me in, I was told, and later I would do hypnosis. I'm a hypnotherapist too. And I would do a regression and I would find out, I heard exactly all of the voices and everything. My mom, I go back to ask her, did this happen? And she goes, that's exactly what happened. They said, we're going to push her in one more time. And if she doesn't kind of come out, and this is 58 years ago, we're going to cut you open. And my mom was terrified. Somehow my little baby soul womb person went in, and they came out and they go, we don't know how she untangled herself. And I go, I do. Story of my life.
Somehow that does not
get out of it.
I believe
always
that.
Get myself out of what I've gotten into. It taught me from the first day. I was so codependent, and I'm like, why did you embrace codependency? You knew from your womb there's no one to save you. And that's what happens to victims, is they're waiting for someone to come in and go, make this right, make this better. Why didn't you come in the room? Why didn't you stop it? Why didn't you save me? Why didn't you rescue me? And that's all legitimate. But the reality is, in that room, the experience is saying to you, you will save yourself. You will grow beyond this. You are not defined by this moment. Don't you dare stop here. I know this is horrific. I want you to know you are your greatest savior. And so, again, healing as a love story is, I will save myself. Doesn't mean you don't believe in God. Doesn't mean you don't believe in fellowship and community. But at the end of the day, when it's you against you, you facing cancer, you being assaulted, you being in a catastrophic event, who's going to save you? It's this person right here. So you better love the hell out of her or him. You better fall in love with that person, because they got your back. Like no one else in the universe will ever have your back like that. And so for me, it was that was the knowing. When I sacrificed myself over to people and thinking, I need you to validate me because I'm not good enough. I mean, I have so much compassion for that young woman who was tortured by being codependent. Like, I tell people, I work with addicts and alcoholics, and they always wonder, how do you identify you're not an addict and an alcoholic? I said, I had it in the family, run it in the family. But I said, and also I know what it's like to want to kill myself, exactly the way you were killing yourself with substances. I know what it's like to think I'm not enough, so I have to fill myself with something, and the something is you. I go, you had a drug. I didn't even have a drug to numb myself from what I was doing to myself. I had to just go through it and feel it and know you are wounding yourself. You are choosing to be abused now. I'm talking about as an adult. I'm not talking about as a child. I made those choices later on. And this is your life. And this is a decision you're making. Guess what I had to do every time? Just hit that bottom where what I wanted was to die. So the years that I'm in depression and the years that I'm suffering, and I don't want to be on this planet, that informed the woman that knows how to manage cancer and goes, oh, really? You ain't going to take me out. Because if I didn't take myself out, you're not going to take me out. Because I had already experienced what's the worst thing that I can experience as a human. It's the desire to kill myself, to take myself out. That is the worst offense of all of the traumas and all of the offenses. That is the worst one. And so if I could navigate that and come back from that experience, wanting to choose life, then cancer was going to be a nothing for me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that is beautiful. I love that. And I love how that you pretty much, took cancer by we'll call it the horns instead of something else, the horns, and said, ha, I'm not doing this time. I want to welcome our beautiful Rachel Morrison. Thank you, Rachel. We love you. And this is Gina Tabrizy.
Amazing. I'm just going to just jump right in, because what I heard in what Gina just shared in the 20 seconds that I've been here was a deep remembering for me around a similar experience of going through my whole life, not loving myself, and then developing an autoimmune disease at kind of the same time I realized self-love. And then I went, holy moly. How did this happen? And how do I rectify living in this life now after I've basically created this epigenetic pattern in me, and reconcile it so I can really live the life going forward that the universe has intended. And so good on you, Gina, for coming in today and stepping into this message for the women out there in the world and for your own soul, because I know how much of a practice it is to stay in alignment with the truth that you really are, and not any of those negative backstories that want to distract us from what's most true.
Yeah. The critic in your own head.
Amazing.
I love that. This is a killer book. I got to tell everybody, the link is in the chat, but it's also up in the description. You can get a hold of Gina up there. But I just want to read this poem really quickly. In the face of fear, I shine the light. To my face and the wind, to my spine. I rise with the consciousness of the sun in agreement with the moon. I lean on the surrender of my soul to the fearlessness of my heart. For there and only there will all that I am know peace. And I feel that with what you've been describing through this beautiful reimagining trauma is peace. Because on the other side of feeling like you're being victimized, feeling like the world's against you, on the other side of that, you can let go. It's peace. And that was so beautiful, because that really encapsulates what we're here to truly experience with each other. The light that comes through from you and from all of you here fills my soul. And I thank you for that. One of the things that you talked about was how cancer was, that was your gift, that grieving, that trauma is a gift. And there's a special place for appreciation in the things that we see as being difficult, and learning how to see them as, this is for me, not against me. Let's talk about that a little bit deeper, the appreciation factor.
It's interesting. Two things came into my head while you were talking, and I was like, it's interesting that I brought up the womb, and being a mother and having birth to kiddos. But there was another way that I was a mother, and it was as a therapist. You know, as a therapist, I nurtured thousands of people, and I took them into my spirit, and I took them into my womb, and I was the trauma expert. So I was never not in the room with trauma. And as I was in the room with trauma, and I would then become a teacher, mentor, supervisor, all this stuff, I would get asked over and over again, how are you not taking it in? And I would say, in my young, foolish self, I would say, I'm not taking it because I do all the spiritual practices to cleanse the space and, you know, pray and get out. And this is yours. This isn't mine. I'm good. And I would go about my day. And it didn't really seem I had the ability to separate and compartmentalize. That's work. This is life. And then I'd experience my own traumas that were separate, you know, from their traumas. And then sometimes they overlapped. But I remember when cancer came and we started dialoguing, and I decided cancer's a woman. And I'm going to tell people why, because she's fucking badass.
I wonder how that works with cancer. I'm so curious.
She's very powerful, insidious, a little bit manipulative, very sneaky, and brilliant. So I thought, it's got to be a female. So we start building this relationship with each other. And one day, because I got breast cancer, you get all the cancers, that's the one I got. And I went, oh my God, I did take it in. The minute that I had the awareness and I found the lump, it was all, you don't even know. I've got to write that book because how I discover it is just mind blowing. I'm working out. I'm going to give you the short version. I work out every day. That's my church. That's how I stay sane and well. And of course, now that I have cancer, it's a have to, right? So I clear my head, I do my stuff. I start doing this additional courses of training that I don't need to do. I'm already paying for the gym. I already go and work out like a nut. And I used to train. I'm a martial artist. I taught kickboxing and, you know, all the things. So it's part of me. So I'm in there and I'm taking this hardcore boot camp, whatever, not for 55-year-olds, whatever age I was at the time. I'm like, what are you doing? And inside, for weeks, there's this voice that says, don't stop, don't stop. And I'm like, okay, like, I don't typically hear voices. I'm not psychotic. And also from a spiritual side, when I receive messages, they come as if they're mine. It's not necessarily a separate voice from me. This was clearly separate from me. And I kept going like, who is that? You know, I just wanted to like see a person. And so I kept listening. So one day I was running, hate to run, can't stand running. My least favorite thing to do. And part of this class was running. And I'm like, of all the things, two things happened. You read it in my book. When I was 14 and the first time I experienced depression and I didn't know how to get out of myself, I intuitively and spontaneously got up and ran out of my house. And from that point on, I keep running. So running saved me. So the universe plugs it back in and goes, you need this again. You don't even know why you need this, but you need the feeling of running. You need it. So I kept running and pushing and running and pushing. And as I'm going, don't stop, don't stop, don't stop. On the final day of the like 12-week boot camp thing, besides getting in phenomenal shape, I'm laying down on the ground. I'm doing a chest press with 25-pound dumbbells, which is heavy for a girl, for anybody, but for a girl, young, you know. And when I laid down, I had no chest, and I saw the lump. I looked down and saw a lump and went, got it, got it. Had I stopped, had I kept some extra weight on me, had I not been in that class, I don't know how long that would have been there, and I would have never seen it. And God knows when it would have appeared. I saw it immediately. And as soon as I saw it, I said, I have cancer. I didn't go, oh, I wonder what that is. Maybe I need to check it out. I said, I have cancer. I owned it immediately. I understood it immediately. And I knew that voice that had been pushing me for 12 weeks not to stop was saying, this is why I need you not to stop. I need you to be in the best shape of your life for this next run of the race. And you're going to run. I mean, how beautiful, right? But that's my truth. That happened.
Yeah. Right.
And so I got in gratitude because I said, you were preparing me even though I didn't know. And I accepted it. I accepted being prepared. I accepted the intuition that said, You have to do this, and you don't need to know why. So we don't always need to know why. But the thing that drives us in the right direction is just a kind and gentle voice that we ignore. And that's where we get the things wrong. And that's where we fall prey to bad people and bad circumstances and substances and all that, is where we stop listening to that beautiful spiritual voice that we all have that speaks very clearly. When you're quiet and still and you hear it, it says, don't stop, and that's, that's how it became the journey that leads me here to writing the book. So I got cancer in 2016 and I lose my dad. And then 4 years later, when I'm in the throes of losing mama, I start writing the book. And that's when cancer came back right at that time. And I said, oh, okay, this is the rest of the race that we're going to run, right? So whatever you believe in, that's my story of what that was for me.
Well, I love how that you share that, and how that you listened to your inner calling of what you needed to do. I remember when you were on stage, you were talking about this and you cracked me up because you said, oh, well, I'll just get more. I'll just, I wanted to get some implants or do something. Now I just, yeah. I got implants.
Well, everybody was so afraid for me, my family and everybody was freaked out. And I was like, oh, I've always wanted boob. Now I get a free set. This is great.
I just thought that was
upset about that. I just
be bad about that.
I just couldn't be upset about it. My husband to this day will say the experience that we had going in the room, finally getting the real diagnosis, and what I always knew was so very different. I knew it from day one, so I had no fear of it. When I mentioned to my husband, he was like, no, maybe that's a lymph node. Maybe that's, I'm like, lymph node. Okay. And whatever my mom had a bunch of cysts and things in her breast. Oh, it's probably benign. I go, okay. I always knew. And I didn't, if nobody knew, that's okay. They didn't need to know. Mm-hmm. But when we finally go into the room after the biopsy and everything, what I love is, and I'm sorry to tell you this, but sneak preview in case you ever have like a critical, physical issue. If you're going to get diagnosed, they take you into the pretty room. They take you into the therapy room. There's tissues, there's a nice sofa, there's a blanket. Like, you don't go into the doctor's office behind the desk. They deliberately, and I'm a therapist, so I know how to stage a room. They're like, and I walked in the room and I start laughing. And my husband's like, why are you laughing? It's like in tears going, why is this funny to you? And I go, because I already know that I have cancer. And they're doing all this prep to tell me. Just tell me. It's all good. Well, you have a malignant, blah, 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 blah. And they start reading. Because I'm like, great. Now I get my boobs. When do we do that? How does this work? And my husband was just weeping. And I said, I already knew. It was already going to be okay. I was already going to walk through it. And so there's no fight in that, And then I started getting grateful. I'm grateful that I get to fight. I'm grateful that I have flippant insurance that could cover the $100,000 price tag. I'm grateful that I have a home and a family that supported me. I'm grateful that I have the mindset that I do. I'm grateful that I was in the best physical shape of my life. Oh my God. Gratitude, 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 gratitude. There was nothing to not be grateful for. I get to breathe. I get to be here. Okay, take my hair. Now I will tell you, I had a very strong conversation with the universe, and I said, you can't take my hair. The one thing I was like, I can't do it. This bald, not good. Not pretty. It might look really cute. I have a huge head. I have like Cro-Magnon head from the front to the back. It's like an extra large Stetson. I was like, you can't take my hair. That's not going to work for me. And then at some point I surrendered that too, because I go, you can't put that out to, and I go, if I have to. Well, you need to find a wig that is, looks like my crown because I like my hair. That was it. I was like, you can't take my hair. Take everything else. You can't take my hair.
Well, this is so special, Gina. Thank you so much. And something that I'm feeling right now is what you mentioned about when you were 14 years old and how you just intuitively got up and out of that house and kept running. And what I'm feeling in that moment is, well, sometimes we think we're running away from something, but really I feel like what you were running to is something that I might be experiencing when I'm in my runs is I'm running to something. as fast as I can with as much vigor and clarity as possible. And to all of everyone out there, and let's talk to our young self and remember what those pieces were about who we were and what we needed to do. And also, let's take a moment and think of the young people in our life right now who we have the opportunity to fully empower and liberate. I'm here with a girlfriend of mine. Her name's Heidi Kapari, and she runs Dream Tank, which is a youth accelerator and helps really empower people into their purpose and things like that. And she's like crawling out of her skin right now, celebrating. Just come here. Just do like a quick hi. Just a quick wave to the camera, everybody. This is Heidi Kapari. She does Dream Tank. She's amazing. You guys are gonna love her. We'll have her on the show again. But just like what you've been able to articulate here around how to right the ship and how it's available for everybody to do internally and to become that for others to step into. Such a brilliant story, Gina. Thank you so much.
Truly.
I want to share from the last chapter of the book. Again, it is Healing is a Love Story. The links are up in the description as well as in the chat. It says, on this journey as human beings, there is one thing we all need to guide us, and that thing is love. I've always believed and always tell my clients that if there is if there is just one human being, I do not care if it is a parent, spouse, teacher, sibling, friend, or even someone you have yet to meet. If just one person enters your life with love, the experience can transfer you forever. I've experienced in my life being loved in that way, and it changed me as I have loved others and transformed them. Now I receive messages on social media all the time from people telling me that they are alone, that there is no one to love them. Perhaps some of you are thinking the same right now. And this is where taking the leap of faith, the step of the leap of faith comes in, and reaching out and knowing that you are lovable. You are worth loving. Enough is enough is one of the chapters also in this book. And if enough is enough and you realize that you are enough, just the way you are, and I highly encourage you to get this book because it's seriously fascinating. You know, Gina, I want you to really quickly do a plug on Ask Gina, your podcast, because it's one of the most, it's extremely popular. You're also on the radio and a few other places. Tell people how to reach you and a little bit about the podcast.
Sure. Well, I started the year of the cancer, and I decided to go on social media because I call it my legacy years. So cancer became my legacy years, where I'm at that age developmentally. This is what you do. You start thinking about what you're leaving behind. I've worked my ass off for 36 years in the field now. I've helped thousands and countless of people that nobody knows about. So I was in a little office by myself, one client at a time, groups, treatment centers. Nobody would know except me the miracles that I would witness on a daily basis. And so when my mortality came into full view and I had to make a decision to keep living and thriving instead of surviving, then this became the book that became the podcast. I call it a podcast, but it's Facebook. So I went out to Facebook because back when I started it, it was a little bit more, that was the venue you went on. And I have a page called Ask Gina. And so, I fashioned it thinking about when Debbie and I were kids and landers. So we didn't have social media. We didn't have all the feels you guys have. We had a newspaper, and this beautiful woman would give advice in the advice column. And don't you know, I read that every single week and said, I want to be Ann Landers. So that's my Ann Landers. I talk about everything, relationship and pain and suffering and money and how to negotiate with your kids, how to deal with depression, anxiety, anything, traffic, whatever. I teach things and I just talk with the audience. It's about 20 to 30 minutes. And I do that every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. on Ask Gina and also on my Instagram, which is at Gina Tabrizy. And I don't have that many followers on Facebook. I have a shit ton of followers, but 200, 300 people watch it. So the more you share and the more people want to see it, I would love that, because when they do see it, they do resonate with what I have to say. Now, the radio show was something else that came through that story. I've always wanted to be on the radio. I've been on other people's radio throughout my years. I was invited on to come onto the show, and then I said to the guy, you know, if you ever want to co-host or somebody to pinch hit, I'm your girl. He goes, are you serious? And I go, yeah. He invites me back. 2 years later, he winds up leaving and leaves me the show. So it's now my show. It's the Recovery Show. It's local here in Orange County, California, KOCIradio.com, 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Every Thursday night, I have guests or I talk. And then we just get into the nitty gritty of life, how to do it, how to be with it, how to heal, how to have joy, you know, how to get through the times that you don't have joy. And just like I spoke with you ladies today, this is what my show is like, you know. And then there's books and there's more coming.
That's beautiful. You also have one other book, really quickly. Let's share about that, because I didn't put this link in. Yes. So words, pearls of wisdom.
Affirmations for daily living. I never know how to get it on screen. There we go. So what's interesting about both my books is my daughter is the artist. So she drew both the covers, and she would not want to say or put herself out there or anything in doing that. She was the only one that when I would visualize and I would tell a designer to design it, she was the only one that could nail it. So I'm like, why am I going to pay this guy? You know, she would get it. She would interpret me in that way. But Pearls of Wisdom is kind of cool because it's just little stories and they're short for people who don't like to read. And then some pages is like 2 lines. It's meant so you open it and what speaks to you. What I read here is, do not keep nurturing relationships which are robbing you of your joy. It's simple, but it's like, ooh, okay, I can do that. I can do that, you know? And so that started it. And this started when I started doing the podcast. I would put these on Facebook. And then one day I said, why don't I take them all and stick them in a book? And that's what happened.
I love it. I love it. So Rachel and Amber, any last words before that we end today?
I just want to thank you once again for being such an inspiring role model of really an alchemist. That's the way that I see you. It's like an alchemist takes all of the ingredients that life serves us up and transforms them into something beautiful, something of great value. And I just appreciate you. Thank you for sharing today. It's been a pleasure to be here with you.
Absolutely, yeah. And you know, I haven't talked to Amber about this yet, about saying it online officially, but I feel like it's the right time to let our audience out there know that if you want to do a regenerative retreat with us at Women Rising, one will be coming up. Tune into templeofwholeness.com. .org. I'm sorry, templeofwholeness.org. And we'll start laying out a retreat. We're already doing it, but if like we get like an influx of information, it might get us there faster. We can all be in person. So just putting a little trim tab there for everyone.
Yes, which is what I'm doing right now in Puerto Vallarta. I'm here doing a week worth of the treatments. So
exactly, yes. And this is like next level wellness. So quantum healing at its finest. So yeah, more to come. And Gina, again, thank you so much. It's been wonderful to be with you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I love you, audience, and I see your comments, and I love those. For anybody that I see the comment that you left, Leah, and please get Gina's book. Again, it's Healing is a Love Story. All the links you need are up in the description or in this chat. We will see you next week right here on Unify Women Rising.
Let us rise.